Hello, Ken Spriggs here. I'm starting a new short build with one of the figures that I bought at Wonderfest. I know I said in my last video that I was going to be doing a Wonderfest video. I decided not to go ahead and do that. There really didn't seem to be much point. A lot of other videos have shown the models in the show and have gone over other things in the show. So it just kind of came down to me making a video about what I bought there, some of the models that I brought home. And so I figured, well, one of them I'm just going to go ahead and build anyway, so I'll just go ahead and talk about that model rather than do a whole video on it. And there's plenty of other videos out there about Wonderfest if you're interested in checking those out. I did have a great time there. Had a great time hanging out with my friend Augie Gonzalez and Joe Schmidt and several other people, Phil Segal, Lou Dalmaso, Wayne Green, lots of other people there. Too many to name, so sorry if I missed your names. But had a great time. I did pick up some cool items when I was there from the vendors, and I've been leaning more towards either 3D printed figures or even cast resin figures. Not any particular reason. I do like styrene model kits, but just nothing really striking my fancy right now. So what I ended up coming home with were, I got some supplies like some epoxy sculpt and some other tools and things I needed. But the main thing I picked up were two figure model kits. And the one I'm going to go over in this video will be the first part of probably a two-part build of this. It's pretty straightforward. It's just the figure and a small base on it, and the figure only comes in 4 pieces, so not too much work on that part of it. But the figure is, hopefully I can get this in camera, the famous pose from Raquel Welch from 1 million years BC, where she's in her what they call doe-skin bikini. And it kind of made her a star after this image was out there in the media. Can't say it went viral because there was no internet at that time back in the 60s. But I've seen a few clips recently of her talking about the film. And right before this, she had made Fantastic Voyage, which is one of my favorite films, obviously. I just built that, the submarine, and a tiny little scuba figure of her. But I was looking around the show and nothing was really striking my fancy. I did see this kit on one of the vendors' tables, and it was interesting. It was very unique, and obviously in my mind was thinking about Raquel Welch since I just was building those, the Proteus and the little scuba figures. So I've hit a few times and just couldn't quite decide on buying it. Decided on the very last day, right before they were ending the vendor room or closing the vendor room on Sunday. I decided I'll just try to make an offer. So I made an offer, and he said, "Oh, that's a little too low." So I went up a little bit higher, and he said, "Oh, how about this?" And then we agreed on a price. I won't go over that because that's not really important. But it's a cast resin figure, very beautifully done, very beautifully made. I was unable to find definitively information about it. I will put some info. Actually, let me go get the name that somebody did suggest, and I did find some information on I believe some site that was talking about it, but I can't say 100%. The box itself is really nicely done. It has very nice artwork on the front, on the sides, on all sides of it. There's no indication as to who made it or any instructions. It doesn't need instructions. It's just her torso, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a base. But let me go ahead and get that info, and then I'll be back in just... All right, sorry about that. I should have been better prepared. So the only thing that somebody had mentioned in a Facebook post was that there was a figure made by a man named John Wright from Vision Models in the 90s, I believe they were saying, from Australia. I could not find any images of this box or the box art. I have seen very few hits came up when I went and searched for it on the internet. I did see some other figures that were similar from other people, but it seems like this is an older kit. Somebody mentioned it might have been a recast. It doesn't seem like it. Most recasts are kind of cheaply made, and they generally don't put them in really nice packaging and boxes. That's kind of defeats the purpose of recasting something or taking someone else's intellectual property. So no reason to believe that it is. It's very nicely done. It's beautifully cast, very flawless, almost no errors whatsoever on the cast. Really nice white resin. And like I said, it's packaged in a nice box that I just showed there. But in any case, it's a really nice likeness of her from that famous pose. And as I mentioned earlier, I've watched a few videos recently with her talking about it when she was much younger, of course. And that was kind of her breakout, not so much the role in 1 million BC, 1 million years BC, but the fact that there was a photograph of her that was made into a poster and put around on, different tabloids and things. And it just blew up, and everybody went crazy over it, and she just became an overnight star because of it. I did get to watch the film recently, and it was really hard to find because it's not available streaming anywhere. I did find it on YouTube, but then they promptly took it down. I'm trying to look for the box I got. So I watched it once, and then they blocked it, so it was gone. I don't understand why video companies do that. Why wouldn't you want your film to be out there to be purchased or rented? I was willing to pay for it. I wasn't looking to try to bootleg it or anything. So I ended up buying it on a DVD from Amazon. And because I do want to go through and watch it again. And this does seem like a little bit better copy. It's not the greatest because it's an older film from like 1966. But get an idea of how her costume looks and the colors in it. It looks very different in different shots. So what she said about the the famous poster shot is, first of all, it was taken outside. So you have natural light. So her outfit looks very light and beige, but other scenes in the film, it does not look that way. It looks more of a leather, very worn leather with some white fringes on it and maybe a little bit of browns in it, that kind of thing. So I'll be looking at some of those images to come up with an idea of how to paint her doe skin bikini, as they call it. But it's a pretty decent film. There's very little dialogue because they're cave people, cavemen, cavewomen. Basically all they say is each other's names, and they have names for some of the monsters. But what was really cool, and I didn't realize it, is that most of the dinosaurs in it are Ray Harryhausen, which I didn't realize. And they look really great. There's a really cool looking giant turtle. There's an Allosaurus, a Triceratops, a Brontosaurus. Oddly enough, there's also a few shots where they use a Gila monster and a tarantula as a giant monster, which I thought was weird since they were using Harryhausen for the rest of it. But it's a decent film. But anyway, really nice figure. I really love the pose. I think whoever sculpted it, and if it is John Wright from Visions, he did a fantastic job. And I think it's going to really turn out great because it's very accurate to the pose and the poster itself. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a look at the model. All right, so here is the box that the kit came in. Really nice artwork, really well done, but again, it does not show the name of any type of model company or who molded it or anything like that. And all the pictures are the same. Solid resin kit. Same thing there. Nothing on the back. So if anyone knows, certainly put in the comments. I am interested to know who made this sculpt. Very nice sculpt. Really, really well made. So very simple build as far as putting it together. You have the torso, the two legs, the two arms, and a little base that you can put her together on. So obviously I'm going to glue her body together, And I might even go ahead and put some pins in her feet and glue it onto the base just to give it something to hold on to while I'm doing the painting and that kind of thing. And I can always still add additional things onto the base afterwards that won't prevent me from doing it, but it'll keep it stable. So let's start with the torso. Really, really nice sculpt. Her face looks fantastic. Her hair looks incredible. Very, very nice job making it look like there's different strands of hair. Of course, even in this movie, she had her hair up kind of poofy. All the women did. They had their hair nicely done, obviously. Her, I think it says deer skin or whatever, but it's her loincloth slash bikini, as it were. I like how they have it in different parts of the fabric sticking up, that you can definitely make it look kind of realistic as a cloth outfit that she's wearing. And then on the back, much of this model, of course, is going to be her skin, because there's a lot of skin showing. And coming up with some realistic skin tones. I'm definitely going to be using some of the techniques that I've done before, like on the charge bust, where you start with a particular base color, almost like a rose color, and then you speckle on different blemishes, and then you go over that lightly, and then you do some more and go over that lightly, and so on and so on. Definitely something easy to do on this kit because it's such a big model of her. But really, really good sculpt. Nice large eyes, large enough eyes that I can carefully paint in the pupils. All right, and then you have the legs, of course, with her little fur booties. No kind of pins or connectors, or just smooth. Same with this one. And they obviously only fit on a certain way. You can see how it's not just a rounded piece, because they go towards that pose where one leg is out this way, the other leg is out the other direction a little bit. Her two arms, also very nicely done. Her hands, she even has sharp nails. And then the other one. Okay, and then you have the base. The base is a solid piece of resin. It seems to be angled up a little bit, so I'm gonna have to see. I think, well, once I get her glued together, I'll be able to tell if she's leaning forward or backwards, and see if maybe this would be the front or maybe the other one would be the front. So we'll have to see once I get her put together. So what I'm thinking of doing is I don't want to use CA glue because it sets up too quick, and you really have to position these so that they just match up with the other part of the leg, and the same with the arm. So what I'm thinking of doing is just, there's a little bit of cleanup to do, a little bit of rough spots so that they are smooth. And then what I'm going to do is take my Dremel, and I might just gouge out a little bit in the center, like a rounded part, and do the same thing on the inner part of the leg, and then just use 5-minute epoxy and put that together. Gives me more working time, and that way I can get them lined up properly, and then just fill in the seams and get them sanded. And the same with the arms, so I can have them attached properly. And like I said, I might look into drilling a hole for like a brass tube in order to support her on the base once I get her all together. I can probably go ahead and drill a hole and put the tube in first before I put it together. I thought about doing some kind of tube where they connect, but again, the problem is that it had to be a pretty generous hole for it to go into, because it would be hard to get these centered. It's an odd shape, and I would have to match it up precisely so that it was centered when I put it in. But I'll play with that and see what I can come up with. And then once I get her together, like I said, I'll probably get her onto the base, and then that will make it a lot easier for me to do the airbrushing and the painting. All right, let me go ahead and get working on putting her together. All right, so a lot of sanding, a lot of cleanup on the seams for my Luana Raquel Welch figure from 1 million years BC. After I got the legs and the arms glued on, I went over them with some sandpaper and tried to get them as smooth as I could on all 4 of those. There were some spots, and pardon the intimacy here. Had to get really in close to Luana's bits there, so I think she has a restraining order against me now. But the difficult part of this is, let me try to get a good shot of this to give you an idea. Most of this figure is her skin. Her stomach is all her skin. This part on the side here is her skin, obviously, her chest, her arms, her complete arms, her face, her legs. Now, underneath, and it's kind of hard, and I'm not being crude, by the way, just showing you the model here. Only that part in the middle there is the panty. This is all her. This is all skin. And it should be seamless. You can still see part of that seam there. So once I got an initial sanding, I went ahead and put a coat of Tamiya gray surface primer on it, which is really good stuff. Let that dry, and then it became more obvious where the seams were going to be. So then I went over it with some Bondo spot putty, which I really like, because you can sand it very smooth. It's designed to be used for a car, so obviously you need a high shine and that kind of thing. So I put that on overnight, let that dry, and on the arms as well. And right now, it's really hard to tell where it still needs some work, because you see the red, that might still be smooth. The white is where I sanded off the putty and part of the Bondo. There were some spots and indents in her right butt cheek, sorry, that needed to be cleaned up. There were also some areas, it's kind of hard to see, but down inside that had like a seam from the mold, I'm assuming, that I had to go in and clean up a bit with a needle file. But the issue here for her, especially in this area, is only that center part. Sorry for the light. Only that center part is the panty, and that little triangle on the back is the panty. All the rest of that is her legs and her behind. All of it is. All the way up is all skin. So that has to be perfectly smooth and all seamless. And so that's really where I'm working at right now. So then what I did was, after the Bondo dried, I went over it with several grits of sandpaper. I started with a 219 to get most of the main putty off, and there was a few spots like this here that I had to work on. And kind of the trick is, and I went a little too overboard, I think, but the trick is, it's a dark red when it dries, and so you start with the hardest grit, or the roughest grit, and you just lightly sand it until you get a lighter red uniform over where all the putty is. So really where these seams are, there should be a little more putty around them. I'm probably gonna have to do some more on those. Then you go over with successively lighter grits. So I used a 219 initially, then I used a 320, then a 400, then I believe a 600, and then finally 1,000 to get a real smooth finish. And right now it looks really rough. Until I get another coat of primer, I won't really see where I'm still missing some spots. I didn't primer the entire figure yet, I will, but I just wanted to go over where the seams were, the areas that I needed to work on, get those cleaned up, because I'm sanding a lot of that primer back off. And then once I primer it again, I'll go do another round of some more Bondo spot putty to fill in any remaining uneven patches and seams. And then once I get it down to the point that I like it, I'll do the surface primer on the remainder of the model. And then the same thing, there might be some things. Now her boots and things like that, and her loincloth, I'm not really gonna have too many issues. There's gonna be rough spots, and that's perfectly fine. It's a piece of cloth. There's a little hole in this right here, if you can see that, but that's fine too. Probably has a hole in it. That might even be part of the model, I really don't know, but I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna fill it in. And until I get some primer on her face or her hair, there may be sometimes you get some light mold lines on the hair. If I get anything like that, I might have to clean that up a bit. Well, you can almost see like right there in the middle. Only because the hair obviously should be just strands and not any lines going horizontally. Her outfit should take the least amount of cleanup on it. I shouldn't have to worry about that part. Okay, so coming along really nicely. Let me go ahead and get another coat of Tamiya Gray Surface Primer, and then we'll see where we're standing as far as my seam cleanup. All right, so I got a coat of primer on the whole figure. Still some slight cleanup to do, but a whole lot better on the seams. You see a little bit of irregularity there. A little bit down in that area there. That's really hard to get at. Some of these seams are really hard to get any kind of, the close proximity. It's really hard to get down in there and get a good sanding. That's looking pretty good. And then her arms. Just a little bit of slight work on that as well. Sorry, this is a pretty hefty figure. A little bit of irregularities, just slight. That's the great thing about the primer, the gray primer. It really shows every little imperfection. All right. But it also shows some other areas, like some of the smoothness there in her back needs to be cleaned up a bit. Some other parts of her body need to be cleaned up a little bit. All right, but definitely getting there. Now it definitely looks a lot more like one solid figure. It was funny because before, with those lines there, it looked like she was wearing like really tight biker shorts. But now you can tell that her legs are all one piece, and that just a little bit of a bikini is the only thing that she's wearing underneath this little loincloth. So what I used a lot of, which is good on these kind of contoured shapes, is some Tamiya sanding sponges. So I got a 320 grit, 400, and a 600 grit, which works well. I also have some other sandpapers of some other grits, but getting really close. So now that I have a primer coat on the whole figure, I'm going to do any final cleanups on the seams that I see to make those look spotless, and then I'm going to clean up any other areas that I have to work on. Mostly it's the skin. These parts, of course, are rough and aren't really an issue as far as any kind of cleanup. There is a few spots, like right there, there's a little bit of a crack, which there wouldn't be any crack in a cloth. It's in the actual resin, and I think there's might be one back here somewhere. Yeah, right there you can see. So I'll have to fill that in because that's not going to look right. There's a little slight line. I don't know if I can show it on camera. Right there, you can see it. There's a little bit of a line in her hair, like a mold seam. So I have to clean that up a little bit. Under her armpit there is looking pretty rough on this side. But other than that, she's looking pretty good. Might be a little bit of a, what is that? Yeah, it's a hair, sorry. Thought there was a line on her chest there, but nope. And I'll probably ultimately sand the rest of her skin to get a smoother look before I start on the painting. And then before I do any of that, once I get it to where I want to be, I'll do one more coat of the primer, and then when I'm satisfied with every part of this figure, then I can start on the painting, which is really what this build is all about. Other than cleaning up the few seams and blemishes, it's a painting. It's a painting model, and there's going to be a lot of it. I picked up some extra paints, which I'll show here once I start doing that. So, okay. All right, so I finished cleaning up the final little spots here and there, and I went over final sanding over all of her skin with a 600 grit to make it smoother. I'm not worrying about repriming some of those spots because they're fine. The next coat of paint I'm going to do is a light flesh, so it has to go over top of the gray anyway, so I'm not really worried about it. But in order to be able to paint her, I glued the brass tubes into her feet, and I modified the base a little bit so that she can stand on it correctly. This is her left foot, and I have a little hole drilled for the brass tube. This other side, her foot was way up in the air, so I used my Dremel to gouge out a nice piece where her foot would fit down inside, and then that way it'll look more natural. So let me see if I can put this on there. All right, there we go. So you can see this foot is now closer to the base. The other foot is sitting flat. There's a gap behind it, but what I'll do is when I'm ready to finish this up, I'll just fill it in with epoxy sculpt and give it a rock texture, make it look like a piece of rock that she's standing up against, and then just paint the base once that's in there. But I played around with some different poses, and I wanted this particular pose because in the poster, her right arm is a little bit behind her. She's kind of leaning more towards the front with her left leg, and I wanted to kind of line up her face with the center of the base. So even though her feet are not necessarily centered on the base, her pose makes her kind of offset to the left a bit. So I think that's a good pose right there. And so what I want to do now is, I'm not going to glue her under the base just yet. I'm going to start painting on the flesh tones, the light flesh tones, and get a base color on her skin and pretty much over the whole thing. And then I'll go back in with some highlights in order to paint her flesh, and then ultimately her outfit as well, and then her hair. So what I'm thinking is, I'll start with the flesh, since that's the vast majority of it, and then what I can do is, once that's all the way I like it and dry, I'll just mask around the areas where her skin is and just paint the rest of it and go from there. So either way, it's going to be kind of tricky, but the vast majority of this figure is just flesh. So I think it'll be easier if I do it that way, and then I can just mask off these little areas that I'm going to be painting differently, and that makes it a little bit easier. The boots will be the easiest part of it. Her doe skin bikini is going to be a little bit more difficult, but shouldn't be a problem. I can just mask around where the skin is and just paint that. Plus the hair has to be separate, and the hair actually overlaps this, so we'll see. I may end up doing some brushing on of the paint for her outfit to a certain degree, but I want to try to do as much as I can with the airbrush, just to give it a smoother look. And then I'll be getting some pictures from some shots of her, which I have some pictures already of her in this costume, and trying to get an idea of the colors that I'm going to put on it. So, all right. All right, so I just used some Vallejo light flesh. I had to thin it down quite a bit. This is not the Model Air, but it's a thicker version, so I thinned it down at least half and half, probably even more. Went over a couple times because I was covering the gray, but I mostly just focused on her skin and got some nice coats. This is just the base coat. And from there, I'll move on to the next steps of highlighting it and adding in pigmentation and various layers. There's going to be a lot of layers on her skin before I'm done. But this is the base coat, so I got all the flesh parts. I didn't really paint over her outfit because that's not really necessary. It didn't hurt if I got some on it. It's gonna have some darker colors anyway. But now that I have that painted on, the next step will be to start working on some various highlights and pigmentation. And then I'll go over that in the next video. I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end at this point. And then the next video will be the final one, and it'll wrap up this build. It's not a lot to it, but there'll be quite a lot of painting that I'll be doing and a whole lot of layers in order to get some realistic pigmentation on her skin. Similar to if you saw my painting of the Charge bust a few years ago, although that one, I used some similar techniques that I had learned at Wonderfest, but I painted her skin some blue tones. But I'll go over those techniques and where they came from when I continue this video next week. All right, so I reached the stopping point here with the model. I'm going to go ahead and end this video at this point here. And a really nice progress on it so far. Cleaning up those seams and getting them correct and getting them hidden was quite a lot of work, a lot of sanding, a lot of puttying. But I think they turned out great. And I have that initial coating of the of the light flesh on it. So in the next video, which I think should be the completion of this model, since all I'm doing is painting it, I'll be working on the flesh tones and the various pigmentations on the flesh, and I'll be using some different techniques that I've used before, but I'll be going over those in the next video, and then painting her outfit and the base as well. So, all right. Well, thank you to all my new subscribers, and I will see you in the next video.